بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وبعد، يروي الإمام الترمذي والإمام أحمد في مسنده بسند حسن عن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه قال. The hadith in the collection of both Imam Tirmidhi in his Sunan, his Jami', and Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, with a reasonable chain of narration narrated to us by Uthman and Affan. This is a long hadith actually, I'm just going to take a piece of it. It's a long hadith, and it's the story that, it's one of the difficult stories to tell, because this is what Uthman radiallahu anhu called out from his home when he was being, when the Khawarij put a siege around his house that evidently or eventually led to his martyrdom when they killed him, radiallahu anhu ardah. And during this very long story, Uthman would call out upon the Muslims, upon the Khawarij, reminding them of things that he had participated in hopes that they would come to their senses that, murdering the Khalifa is really not the way to fix the problem. Whatever they think is not going well, murdering him was not the way. But he refused to allow any bloodshed to happen on his account, and he accepted what they did. He gave up his own life for the Ummah, radiallahu anhu. In a story that's quite complex. But amongst what he said in that was recorded is the following. قال, and of course the theme is still endowment, so you'll hear something tonight. فقال لما قدم المهاجرون إلى المدينة استنكروا ماءها ولم يكن فيها ماء يستعذب إلا بئر يقال له رومة أو رومة. So he said that when the Muhajirin, when the people of Quraysh and outskirts of Mecca came to Medina, came to Yathrib as Muhajirin, as immigrants, they didn't like the water. You'll know this, you'll notice this if you go to a different country, that the water may taste a little bit different to you, and it actually may make you sick for a while. I remember I used to get sick as a kid. Every time we went from Syria to Saudi, every single time we would make the trip, we would get sick on the way there, and when we got there, and then we got sick when we get back. And it just from the water, the change, and it just tasted different. There's something different about it. And the Sahaba did too. When the Prophet ﷺ arrived in Medina, and so did Bilal and Abu Bakr, they all got sick. They were sick for some of them for weeks and weeks before they could get used to the environment and the climate in Medina. And one of the problems was the water. They didn't like the water. Like the water, because they're used to Zamzam. These are spoiled people. Astaghfirullah. Like there are people who've been treated well when it comes to water because they live in Mecca, they drink Zamzam all the time. And now they're going to Medina and the water just didn't taste the same. But there was one bi'r called Roma, that tasted well. فقال وكان صاحبها يبيع القربة منها بمد. He would sell like a gallon of it for a decent amount of money. Like you had to pay good money to get the water. In Mecca it was free, it was Zamzam. You didn't have to do anything. So it bothered them. So the Prophet فقال صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم من يشتري بئر رومة من صلب ماله ويجعل دلوه فيها مع دلاء المسلمين وله خير منها في الجنة أو وله عين في الجنة. So he asked a question عليه الصلاة والسلام, who will buy this well with his own wealth, min sulbi malihi, from his capital, from what he has, and then he puts his bucket with the buckets of the Muslims. Meaning, this is the point. This is the waqf piece, where he doesn't get any extra attention or get any special treatment. Meaning, he puts his bucket like the buckets of any other Muslim. Meaning, he buys this well and he donates it to Muslims, and his bucket is just another bucket. He's not going to get the first dibs on the water ever. Like it's not his. He's not going to own it. He's not going to get any special treatment for it. He's just going to treat himself like any other Muslim. And he will get for that a spring in Jannah, or something better than it waiting for him in Jannah. By the way, Bi'r Roma still exists. You can go see it. If you go into Medina, you can go ask, and they'll show you where it is, where he bought it. رضي الله عنه. فقال عثمان فاشتريتها من صلب مالي وجعلت دلوي فيها كدلاء المسلمين. I bought it from my capital, from my own wealth. It's very expensive to buy a well. He bought, and I made sure that my bucket was no different than the bucket of any other Muslim regarding this well. And in the hadith, the long hadith, he would ask, ألا تعلمون أني فعلت ذلك? Don't you know that I did this? فيقولون بلى. Yes, we do. فقال فما فتمنعونني الماء. I'm asking you to allow them to bring water into my house. My wife and I are thirsty, and you won't bring me water. I bought Bi'r Roma and I gave it to the Muslims. You won't bring me water into this house. Subhanallah, that's the Khawarij. This is a whole different topic. This is someone who sees somehow murdering Muslims to have meaning to it. SubhanAllah. And he would add رضي الله عنهم قال وقال رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام من يشتري هذه بقعة آل فلان من صلب ماله فيزيدها في المسجد. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام had a masjid and there was a piece of land right behind it at the other side, at the back side. فقال who will buy it from his capital and add it to the masjid, like as a waqf. يقول عثمان فاشتريتها من صلب مالي وزدتها في المسجد. And he bought it as well رضي الله عنه and he increased it into the masjid. This concept of awqaf is something that continues to be ignored by Muslims today, not just here in the West, but is ignored by Muslims elsewhere as well. And one of the reasons that it got ignored, by the way, is because they started a ministry for it. You see, anything that you bring the hukuma in the Middle East becomes immediately corrupt and tainted, and people don't want it anymore. So they make it a wizara, they call it Wizarat al-Awqaf. And once they made that wizara, people they lost interest in the concept of awqaf. So even in the Middle East, where this concept actually still exists quite powerfully, it started to fizzle out just because they attached it to authority. Muslims have always figured out ways to fund themselves and fund their needs and their students and their activities outside of what maybe governments will or will not do. And we have no choice but to do that in this country when we are facing problems and difficulties that the government that governs us doesn't even recognize these as difficulties. They don't even recognize our problems for them to help us to subsidize any of our efforts. So there has to be this effort here. One of the awqaf that I want to share with you today, waqf al-arais. There's a waqf that existed in Sham. I know it because it's still, some of it is still there. Waqf al-arais is where if you were going to get married and you were poor, you could go and they will give you a suit, and they will give the wife, the bride, anything she used to wear, and they will give you a place to have your urs, and they'll give you like everything that you need, basically everything that you require, but as a rent, but for free. Like you're not owning it, but they're kind of they're loaning it to you. You're taking it as a loan. You're using it for your rent. You're using it for a while, then you're giving it back. And this still exists today. There are places where you can go, and there's waqf al-aras, where you can go and get everything you need for urs, everything you can possibly imagine, the cutlery, everything. The cutlery, everything that you want is you can take and you just bring it back, and it's a waqf that continues to. But they just ask you that when you have money later on, that you put money into this waqf so that they can buy more stuff and they can give people. And I think it's a reason we don't have that here, but I think that's something simple. We could probably do something like that to make the cost of weddings a bit more reasonable upon people who don't have a lot. Not everyone has put together a large savings account with a couple of. With tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a wedding. Wallah, ridiculous, wallahi, what we're doing. Absolutely ridiculous. Like going to weddings like Eve is just not fun anymore. It's very, we have to be careful, all of us. You have children, you have to start coaching your children, males and females. But coach them. That is, be moderate when it comes to, be modest when it comes to what you're going to put into this 8-9 hours. Swallowing up maybe years of wealth, years, literally years, in maybe 9 hours. How is that? Where is that in the Shara of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that this is what we need to? There are ways to show happiness and to show joy and to honor people without necessarily blowing through. It's not an issue of generosity. Like as a young man, let me point this out to you. You are being tested by not just your spouse, but by the family of your spouse on your generosity. The worst thing is to marry into a stingy man. One of the worst things in the world. If he's bakhil, a'udhu billah min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. Doesn't matter what other good traits you have. If you are bakhil, like by nature, you are stingy, it's a nightmare to be married to a stingy man. It's a horrible thing. So they will poke and to see if you are willing to put your wealth. If you're generous, you just need to make sure that you're a generous person, that you're not someone who sits down and counts the pennies at night and looks at the, what is this, $25? What did you buy? You don't want someone like that. You can't live with someone like that. It's very hard to live with people like that in this world. So they will test you to see if you're generous. But I think sometimes we're testing a little bit too hard. Like we're setting up these people to fail in these exams that we're putting for them. We're asking them to put half of what they've saved over the last 10 years. That's not a test of generosity. That's not a test of generosity anymore. Allahu Alam, I don't see it to be that. So just be careful. And as a young man, marry into someone whose socioeconomic status is similar to yours. Marry into a family that deal with the numbers that you deal with. Like, we speak in hundreds. If you marry into a family that speak in thousands, maybe don't do that. If you're speaking in hundreds, yeah. If you're speaking in tens and 15s, then look, marry into a family. It's okay. There's no one's better than anyone. Money is not a measurement of betterment. But don't marry into a family as a young man that have expectations that are way beyond what you're capable of offering. If you see the girl and she's driving out with a BM and you're getting into your crookedy Corolla, then maybe you don't go and maybe you don't go. She's probably a very nice person, and so is her family. They're a very nice family, but maybe you don't have. It's a right within Islam. Listen to this. This is in every book of fiqh. Every single madhab will say the same thing, from the Hanafis to the Hanbalis, all of them. إذا تزوجها وكان لها في بيت أبيها خادم وجب عليه أن يوجد لها خادما. If a lady in her home has someone that does the chores, and you go marry into you have to bring her someone to do that. That was her norm. You can't come expect a woman to remove her from her norm. No, you came and asked. If you can't provide for her what her father has been providing for her, then maybe you don't knock on that door. There's nothing wrong with it. It's kafa'a in Islam. It's an important piece. I don't know why I'm talking about this. We'll end with that. يروي الإمام أحمد في مسنده بسند حسن عن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه قال: لما قدم المهاجرون المدينة استنكروا ماءها ولم يكن فيها ماء يستعذب إلا بئر رومة، فقال صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: من يشتري هذا البئر من صلب ماله ويجعل دلوه فيها مع دلاء المسلمين وله عين في الجنة فاشتريتها من صلب مالي وجعلت دلوي فيها مع دلاء المسلمين. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. الحمد لله لا إله إلا أنت، استغفرك وأتوب إليك، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.